The 7 Series is a flagship, and that, in the U.S. anyway, has always meant either a V8 or a V12. But everything's leaner and greener these days, so BMW thinks we're ready for a 7 without an engine to brag about. In carbon black over oyster leather, a 7 still cuts an imposing figure, even when it does have an engine from a 3 Series.
The navigation system is standard on this car. It's your general beauty of a BMW rig. What is that thing? 10-inch diagonal, extremely wide screen. This is one of the best I've seen yet on doing their 3D rendering of urban areas, and also does a real nice job of showing contours in various parts of the world. And of course, being a BMW, that's not a touchscreen. It's all done here with iDrive or with voice command. We've seen this iDrive controller before. Lots of dedicated buttons to shortcut to things you want to do. Telephone, nav, radio, or CD. The back button is key. The option button is kind of like right-click on your Windows mouse.
Outshone by iDrive is the now excellent voice command in this car. During destination entry, for example, it's able to verbally take in your destination in one big gulp, instead of state, then city, then street, then address as separate verbal burps.
235 2nd Street, San Francisco, California.
235 2nd Street, San Francisco, California.
Now, CD multimedia on this car is a relatively limited amount of goodies in terms of digital stuff you want to play. You've got your optical slot right up here. Here's store in vehicle. That's because we've got a hard drive. You can rip this guy to the hard drive, and you've got 12 gigabytes of space total. Now, what's not so clear is the fact that you do have a USB jack in this car, but it's not reachable, and that's for a reason. You can't do much with it.
That USB drive, though, is not for playing your iPod or thumb drive. It's only for loading files to the hard drive from a USB storage stick, or backing up those files to the stick, or restoring them from it, or loading your personal driver settings.
This is what they call the smartphone cradle. It does all the integration through hardwired contacts if your phone matches one of the cradles they offer. It also gives you wired power and a built-in in-car antenna. But then you can also get what's called a Bluetooth cradle, which does the connection via Bluetooth, but does give you access to the built-in antenna on the car. And finally, there's an iPhone cradle, which holds your iPhone here, while I believe it's Bluetooth connected, but getting a charge, and I don't know if it's hardwired to an antenna. One thing we're never going to see on this screen, unless we spend some option dollars, is a rear view camera. Instead, you get these dual sensor maps, front and rear sensors. This one shows both at once. This one shows a zoom in of the car itself, whether I'm in reverse or whether I'm in drive. Kind of a quaint 6-speed automatic with the now familiar BMW ice cream scoop or something more obscene than that, whatever you think that looks like. Next to it's the driving dynamics rocker. This will take you all the way from comfort, where the car behaves like a slug, all the way up to normal, which is standard and balanced. Here's Sport. You can actually get in there and decide what Sport modifies. And finally, you've got Sport Plus, which pushes everything to its most aggressive and also plays with the traction control to make it break loose a little bit.
This is the kind of car where rear seat entertainment kind of makes sense. But while I like that it now uses a pair of widescreen headrest monitors, I'm bored with the fact they tie into an old school 6 DVD changer in the front glove box.
Now, up here up on the bow is where you learn that this is the BMW 7 for those who don't have to prove the size of their bank account or anything else, because it's the thinking person's 7.
It's got a 3-liter inline 6 with dual turbos, the same engine that was in the original 335i.
Plenty of power, though. 315 horsepower, 330 foot-pounds of torque. Gets this 4,400-pound brute up to 60 in about 5.8 seconds while delivering 1725 mpg. Part of the magic is not just the turbo, but direct injection and BMW's infinitely variable Valvetronic timing on the cams. Most interestingly, though, this 740i makes a real fool of its brethren, the BMW 7 Series Active Hybrid, which costs about $32,000 more, and if memory serves, gets about 1 mpg better. I've got a maxim about cars. It goes a little bit like this. When a car is engineered properly, in everyday driving, you are using about 70% of what it can do. If you buy one of today's high-powered, big-bore, multi-turbo, blah, blah, blah cars, I'm looking at you, 750 or 760, you're using maybe 20% of what the car can do most of the time. And that's not really driving to me. That's more like stewardship. Turbo lag is definitely there. Turbos always lag. It's the nature of a turbo. There's no way around that, or it would be a blower. But it's definitely restrained, and I think this car has what I would call ample power, if not overwhelming power. There's a real difference on the suspension compliance between comfort and sport. At least between those two notches, you really feel a difference in the wallow. You get quite a bit when you're in comfort, which gives it a nice town ride. But you got to get out of that when you really want to handle the car, because there's just too much bounce and jounce on the front and the rear end. Sport mode holds the shift points dramatically higher. These are meaningful settings. That's what I'm trying to get at here. The comfort, the normal, the Sport Plus, they really do things differently and aren't just a bit of switchcraft to make you feel like you got a gimmick. And they do things differently in the right places. That's nice. Okay, let's price our 2011 740i. Six-cylinder, yes. Still a $71,000 plus car just to get in the game. That feels a little steep to me, but it's a BMW. Now, the packages you've got to consider to go CNET style include premium sound. That's the more watts, the more channels, and the iPod and USB playback ability. $1,800. Not badly priced. Badly priced is the rear seat entertainment system at $2,800. Yeah, they're widescreens, but that's just such a dated setup overall. Pass. $1,300 gets you this driver assistance package. That's going to bring you automatic high beams, but more interestingly, lane departure warning and blind spot information stuff. I think I'd go with that. And no matter what you do, no matter what package you get, no matter how much you spend on this goddamn thing, you got to spend $400 a la carte to get a rear view camera. And that's where I go on strike. Other a la carte options are one of those confusing phone cradles from $150 to $220. Adaptive cruise control, $2,400. Head-up display, BMW does that well, $1,300. Active suspension's $2,000. Oh yeah, night vision with pedestrian detection, $2,600. Pricey but cool. And did I mention the rear view camera, $400?